Imagine, if you will, settling into this moment where the world beyond your eyelids softens to a gentle hush, and the only rhythm that matters is the subtle rise and fall of your own breath, like the tide easing against a sheltered shore. You've chosen this quiet space, perhaps curling beneath a blanket that feels like a whispered promise of safety, or simply allowing your body to sink into the embrace of whatever surface holds you now. Because tonight, or whenever this finds you, we embark on a tranquil journey through the hidden realms of your body's most faithful allies. Those unseen guardians that stand watch without ever demanding your notice. It's a path designed not for haste, but for wonder, where each step reveals the elegant dance of defense and renewal, inviting you to release the day's tensions and drift toward a sleep woven with reassurance. And if this gentle exploration resonates, as it so often does for those seeking a deeper harmony with their own vitality, consider lingering here with us, perhaps by subscribing to these serene sojourns, so that more such whispers await when you need them most. Now, draw in a slow breath through your nose, feeling the air cool and alive as it fills you. Then release it softly, letting your shoulders loosen, your jaw unhinge, as if shedding the weight of unseen worries. There, settled, ready to wander inward. In the vast, intricate landscape of your body, a living tapestry of rivers and forests, peaks and valleys that pulse with quiet purpose. There exists an army, not of clashing steel or thunderous marches, but of silent sentinels, tireless workers whose vigilance forms the very foundation of your resilience. This is your immune system, a network so profoundly attuned to your being that it operates like the unseen currents of a great ocean, ever present yet rarely stirring the surface unless called upon. Picture it, if you can, as a realm of devoted protectors, white blood cells gliding through your bloodstream like ethereal scouts on mist-shrouded paths, antibodies standing ready as luminous shields forged in the fires of memory, and organs like the spleen and bone marrow serving as bustling command centers, humming with the soft efficiency of ancient wisdom. It's an army that knows no holidays, no moments of repose beyond the rhythmic cycles it shares with your sleep. And in understanding its gentle might, even in these whispered hours leading you toward rest, you begin to feel a profound empowerment, a reassurance that blooms like dawnlight over a still valley, easing the knots of daily stress into threads of serene trust. This awareness, so softly summoned, carries its own quiet gift, a sense of interconnected wonder, where the body's hidden harmonies remind you that resilience is not a distant dream, but the very breath you draw now, fostering a peaceful discovery of how nature's rhythms pulse within, inviting harmony with the world's wider weave. Let us begin, then, at the outermost edges of this inner world, where the first line of defense rises not as a fortress wall, but as a living veil, permeable yet unyielding, woven from the very skin that cloaks you now. Your skin, that remarkable boundary between the chaos of the outer world and the sacred order within, acts as the army's outermost rampart, a barrier so intuitive in its strength that you scarcely think of it until a cool breeze reminds you of its presence, or a warm sun coaxes a flush of gratitude from its surface. Composed of layers, epidermis like a tiled roof shedding rain, dermis beneath it a resilient mesh of collagen and elastin. It doesn't merely block, it actively discourages, with its slightly acidic sheen repelling invaders as surely as a dew-kissed leaf turns away the night's chill. And woven into this fabric are the hair follicles and sweat glands, tiny outposts releasing oils and salts that create an environment hostile to uninvited guests, much like the subtle spices in a home-cooked meal that preserve its warmth long after the hearth cools. These elements, in their everyday alchemy, form a seamless shield, where the sebum's soft sheen and sweat's saline sting collaborate in a quiet chemistry that keeps the outer world at bay. A reminder of how your body turns the mundane into the miraculous, each pore a portal of protection that whispers of the deeper designs at play. You've felt this too, haven't you? That instinctive recoil when a splinter pricks or a rash itches. A quiet signal that your ramparts are holding firm, teaching you early in life the beauty of boundaries that protect without isolating. And in that felt knowing, a gentle empowerment emerges, the assurance that what guards you also guides you toward greater ease. As we linger here, allow your awareness to drift to the surface of your arms or the back of your hands, noticing the faint texture under your fingertips if you choose to touch, or simply the way the air kisses your skin in this moment of stillness, perhaps carrying the faint, imagined scent of earth after rain to evoke that protective pulse. Breathe with it now. Inhale the idea of this protective sheath. Exhale any lingering doubt about your body's innate wisdom. There. In that pause, you might sense it. The army's first whisper, a reminder that this outer guard is but the beginning, connected through invisible threads to deeper patrols that ensure no shadow slips through unnoticed. Each layer, a link in the luminous chain of your resilience. From these ramparts, the narrative flows inward, like a river carving its way through fertile canyons, to the mucous membranes that line your nasal passages, throat, and the winding paths of your digestive tract. Moist, glistening sentinels that trap and flush away potential threats with the elegance of a stream carrying autumn leaves to the sea. These lines ever lubricated by mucus, a substance so unassuming yet so vital, produced in quiet abundance by special cup-shaped cells that resemble chalices overflowing with crystal-clear nectar, form a sticky web for dust, pollen, or microbes, ensnaring them before they can venture further. And oh, the wonder in their mechanism. Tiny hairs, cilia, wave in synchronized unison, propelling these captives toward expulsion in a cough or swallow, a process as rhythmic and reassuring as the sway of tall grasses in a meadow breeze. It's here, in these hidden corridors, that the army reveals its layered poetry, not brute force, but a symphony of subtle motions, each one echoing the others in a cascade of preparedness that speaks to the interconnected grace of your form, where the respiratory folds filter the inhaled world with the same tender tenacity that the gut's gateways guard the nourishment you take in, ripples of vigilance weaving from breath to belly in seamless solidarity. Consider for a moment how this mirrors the ordinary rhythms of your day, the way a sip of warm tea soothes a scratchy throat, or the instinctive blink that clears your eyes after a gust of wind. These are not accidents, but affirmations of the army's design, a system evolved over eons to harmonize defense with delight, allowing you to savor the world's offerings while remaining ever guarded. Gently philosophical, isn't it? That in the act of breathing, eating, touching, you partake in a grand, ongoing ritual of protection, one that invites you to trust the flow rather than resist it. And as you settle deeper into this narration, perhaps feeling the weight of your eyelids grow heavier, with each exhaled breath, let the trust seep in like twilight softening the edges of a mountain silhouette. A soft surrender to the sentinel's steadfast song. You've sensed this enveloping ease too, in the quiet comfort of a deep inhale on a crisp morning, where the air's arrival feels like an ally's arrival, normalizing the membrane's work as the body's benevolent breath. A bridge to the empowerment of simply being, held in the hush of your own harmonious house. Now, let the river of our exploration carry us further, to the patrolling forces that course through your veins and lymph vessels. Those aqueous highways where the true mobility of the army unfolds. Blood, that crimson elixir, serves as the primary thoroughfare, ferrying white blood cells, neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, on journeys that span the entirety of your inner geography, from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head in mere minutes. These cells, numbering in the billions, drift and dart, with a purpose that defies their microscopic scale, sampling the environment like vigilant gardeners inspecting soil for signs of blight. Neutrophils, the swift responders among them, arrive first in times of need, engulfing debris with a process called phagocytosis that unfolds like a flower blooming in reverse, drawing in and dissolving what doesn't belong, all while releasing signals to summon reinforcements. A chemical Morse code of peptides and cytokines that ripples outward, alerting the network to converge, each message a murmur in the vast vascular village, connecting the lone leaf to the leafy canopy. Yet it's the lymphatics that add the deeper layer to this patrol, a parallel system of clearer fluids meandering through vessels as fine as spider silk, gathering in nodes clustered like way stations along ancient trade routes. These lymph nodes, nestled in the crooks of your elbows, the hollows of your neck, the curve of your groin, swell subtly when rousing to action, becoming hubs of strategy where cells convene, deliberate, and multiply. Much as villagers might gather in a town square to share tidings of approaching weather. Here, in these quiet assemblies, antigens, fragments of potential foes, are presented and scrutinized. Decisions made not in clamor, but in the hushed language of molecular handshakes, ensuring that the response is measured, precise, fitting to the scale of the challenge. These gatherings, so subtly strategic, ripple through the realms, from the node's nodal nexus to the spleen's sifting spleen, a web of watchfulness that underscores the army's artful architecture, where one whisper in the wrist's way station awakens watchers in the world's wider wards. You've felt this gathering before, perhaps in the tender ache after a long hike, when your nodes whisper of their work. A fleeting tenderness that speaks volumes of their dedication, normalizing the body's way of honoring its own labors. And in that tender touch, finding the quiet power to proceed with poise. Your form's faithful flow, a foundation for fearless forward. Pause with me here, dear listener, and direct your attention now to the gentle pulse at your wrist or the steady beat beneath your ear against the pillow. Feel it as the drumbeat of this patrolling legion, each throb a testament to the life force that courses unerringly through you, perhaps carrying the faint imagined warmth of sunlight on a vein's veiled path. Inhale deeply, drawing in the image of these fluid pathways glowing with soft inner light. exhale, releasing any tension that might cloud your appreciation for this ceaseless guardianship. Emerging from that stillness, you may notice how the very act of reflection amplifies the wonder, turning abstract knowledge into a felt reality, a bridge between the educational and the deeply personal, where the patrol's persistent poetry invites a profound philosophical pause. In these currents, your body not only carries but cradles, a vessel of vigilance that vows vitality in every vein. As our vignettes weave onward, let us turn to the bone marrow, that crimson forge hidden within the sturdy vaults of your long bones. Femur humerus, the very scaffolding that upholds your form. Here, in this nurturing cradle, stem cells divide and differentiate with the patient artistry of a master weaver at her loom, spinning out fresh recruits for the army. Erythrocytes for oxygen's carriage, platelets for mending tears, but above all, the leukocytes that form the vanguard. It's a process of quiet alchemy, fueled by nutrients drawn from your meals. The greens of spinach echoing in chlorophyll's verdant hue, the iron-rich depth of beets mirroring the marrow's own ruddy glow, transforming sustenance into strength. A reminder of how profoundly your choices nourish not just the body, but its defensive harmony. Each bite a brick in the bastion, rippling from fork to forge in flavorful fidelity. Subtly ironic in a way, that the spaces once filled with childhood's boundless energy now house this forge of fortitude, an evolution that underscores the philosophical beauty of life's phases. From play to protection, each building upon the last in ripples of enduring grace, where the marrow's meticulous making mirrors the mind's own maturation, turning tumult into timeless tenacity. Interconnected with this origin point is the thymus, a small, butterfly-shaped organ in your chest, where T cells, those discerning tacticians of the adaptive wing, undergo their rites of passage, learning to distinguish friend from foe through a gauntlet of trials that ensures only the wisest proceed. Like apprentices in a secluded glen, guided by the whispers of epithelial cells and dendritic mentors, they emerge honed, ready to orchestrate responses that remember, that anticipate, turning past encounters into shields for the future. This thymic tempering, so subtly sculptural, sends ripples through the ranks, from the fresh-fledged T's transit to the lymph's listening posts. A lineage of learning that links the forge's fire to the frontier's faithful watch. And the spleen, that fist-sized filter in your left abdomen, stands as the grand recycler sifting blood for worn-out cells, while staging rapid deployments, its white pulp alive with lymphoid follicles that resemble clusters of elderberries heavy with promise. These organs, in their collective hush, form a council of continuity, each vignette of their function a thread in the larger tapestry of vigilance, showing how the army's strength lies not in isolation, but in this web of mutual reliance, where marrow's making meets spleen sifting in a symphony of subtle support, each element echoing the others in an endless, elegant embrace. You've felt echoes of this counsel in quieter moments, haven't you? That profound ease after a nourishing meal, when vitality seems to hum just a touch brighter, or the restorative calm following a fever's break, as if the inner workings have shared their success in a subtle somatic language, a third whisper of wisdom that normalizes the extraordinary as your everyday endowment, tying the forger's quiet craft to the calm confidence of carrying on. An empowerment etched in every easy exhale. To deepen this awareness, consider a simple micro practice now. Close your eyes if they aren't already, and envision a soft veil of warmth unfurling from your core, spreading outward to envelop these inner allies in gratitude's glow, perhaps carrying the faint imagined scent of blooming jasmine to soften the spread. With each breath, affirm silently, I am guarded, I am whole, allowing the words to dissolve into sensation, the warmth a tangible echo of the army's devotion. In this space, the importance of these dynamics crystallizes, not merely as biological fact, but as a source of emotional uplift, a wellspring of awe that counters the world's uncertainties with the certainty of your body's balanced rhythms, where the council's quiet continuity invites a contemplative close. These precursors, in their patient prelude, prepare not just the patrol, but the peace within, a harmony that holds you as you hold the hush. And so, as the embers of this introductory overview glow steadily, we sense the first stirrings of the alert. Those gentle precursors giving way to signals that rouse the deeper ranks. Exhale slowly now, imagining that warmth settling like a blanket over patrolling paths, while distant echoes of cells aligning, of whispers turning to murmurs, begin to fade into the night, carrying you forward on waves of reassured repose. The army stands ready, not in clamor, but in the profound quiet of its eternal watch, a harmony that mirrors the stars' unhurried turn across the sky, inviting you ever deeper into the peace that follows understanding. Yet let us not hasten. Instead, linger a while longer on the skin's enduring role, for it is more than barrier. It is sensor and storyteller, embedded with Langerhans cells that sample the world like curious scribes, relaying tales to the lymph nodes for archival wisdom. These dendritic extensions, branching like the roots of an ancient oak, bridge the outer and inner realms with exquisite sensitivity, ensuring that vigilance is as much about adaptation as exclusion. In everyday terms, this is the reason a healing cut itches with promise, or why sunlight on your face can feel like a benediction. The army subtly calibrating exposure to foster resilience rather than retreat. Poetic, isn't it? How what touches you becomes part of you, transformed through these vigilant translations into strength. Flowing from there, the respiratory tract's defenses merit their own vignette. A cascade of protections where the nestle turbinates. Those scroll-like shelves warm and humidify incoming air, while IgE antibodies in the mucus stand as first emissaries, binding to pathogens like courteous hosts, redirecting uninvited guests at the door. This layered progression, from filtration to flushing, evokes the hush before a summer storm, building not tension, but anticipation of clarity, much as your own inhales now carry you toward exhalations of release. Repetition here reinforces the theme. Protect, sample, relay. Protect, sample, relay. A mantra of the mucous membranes that underscores their reliability, turning potential vulnerability into veiled opportunity for growth. Each wave of the cilia, a whisper of the web's wider weave. Deeper still, in the gut's vast villi-lined expanse, a surface area vast as a tennis court, folded into the compact elegance of your abdomen. The microbiome collaborates with immune outposts, a microbial militia in truce with your cells, educating them through constant dialogue to tolerate friends and challenge foes. This symbiotic counsel, fermented in the warmth of digestive fires, produces short-chain fatty acids that fuel the epithelial barriers. A biochemical poetry where bacteria's byproducts become bricks in the wall of well-being. Relatable too in the comfort of a balanced meal that settles rather than stirs. A quiet nod to this inner alliance that fosters not just defense, but delight in sustenance's shared story, ripples from the gut's grand gathering to the globe of your guarded grace. As these interconnected explanations ripple outward, consider the philosophical undercurrent. In a universe of flux, your immune army embodies the art of poised equilibrium, ever vigilant, yet yielding to rest's renewal, a model for human resilience that whispers of surrender as strategy. Rhetorical, perhaps, but true. What greater empowerment than knowing this balance is yours by design? A heritage of evolution's patient hand, a heritage that holds you in its hushed hand even now. To close this awakening gently, return to the pulse once more, letting it sync with your breath in a slowing cadence. The sentinels patrol a lullaby, now rather than a march. The warmth from earlier lingers, a soft anchor as echoes of readiness fade, preparing the ground for the innate force's subtle rousing. Drift with it reassured, into the vast peace that awaits, where the overview's overarch invites the inner army's awakening, a seamless segue to the sentinel's silent song. And in that vast peace that awaits, as the overview's overarch invites the inner army's awakening, a seamless segue to the sentinel's silent song, the army's innate guardians, those instinctive allies etched into the blueprint of your being, emerge from the hush with the unhurried grace of dawn mist rolling over dew-kissed meadows. Their patrol a prelude to the deeper dances yet to unfold. These first responders, unbound by memory's measured maps, stand as the immediate veil between equilibrium and intrusion, operating with a wisdom so woven into your essence that it feels less like mechanism and more like the instinctive curl of a hand from flame. The blink against sudden light, a reassuring rhythm that allows your days to drift in untroubled flow. In this gentle precursor to fuller mobilizations, we explore their hushed operations, not as distant abstractions, but as the undercurrent of trust that cradles you even now, breaths lengthening towards sleep's gentle horizon, where the subtle shift within stirs faintly, like the first notes of a lullaby, hummed in the quiet hours before rest, claims you fully, inviting a wonder-filled wonder into the body's benevolent beginnings. Let us drift, then, into the vignettes of these barriers, the outermost whispers of innate defense, where the patrol begins not with fanfare, but with the soft persistence of nature's own repellents. Those everyday armors that turn away threats before they can cast a shadow. Beyond the skin's resilient sheath, which we have already caressed in imagination, lie the chemical moats, acids in your stomach, a churning cauldron of hydrochloric sharpness that breaks down not just food, but any audacious wanderers that slip past the esophagus's watchful gate, dissolving them into harmless oblivion with the efficiency of rain eroding stone over silent seasons. This gastric forge, pH dipping to a level that would blister outer surfaces, yet lined with mucus to shield its own tender walls, embodies the army's balanced ferocity. Protective without self-harm, a reminder of how your body discerns and delimits with poetic precision. Each drop a decree of discernment that ripples from the gut's guarded gate to the globe of your guarded grace. And in the urinary tract too, the flow of urine serves as a flushing river, carrying away residues while its mild acidity discourages bacterial foothold, much like a mountain stream. clear and insistent, sweeping debris to distant seas without fanfare or fatigue. Its current, a quiet covenant of cleanliness that connects the kidney's careful craft to the cascade of ceaseless care. These chemical sentinels, in their unassuming diligence, connect seamlessly to the physical ones we touched upon earlier, forming a continuum of quiet exclusion that ripples through your form like the interconnected roots of a forest floor, sustaining the whole without drawing attention to the labor. Consider the tears that well in your eyes, saline scouts laced with lysozyme, an enzyme so gentle in name, yet so resolute in action, cleaving bacterial walls as a soft breeze scatters dandelion seeds, ensuring clarity in vision and vigilance in moisture. Or the saliva, that constant companion in your mouth, rich with the same lysosome and other antimicrobial peptides, swathing your oral landscape in a protective film each time you swallow, turning the simple act of tasting bread or sipping water into a ritual of renewal. You've felt this too, haven't you? That instinctive rush of saliva at the scent of something comforting. A subtle signal that the patrol is active, weaving defense into delight, normalizing the body's way of making guardianship as ordinary as hunger's satisfaction. And in that normalcy, finding a profound empowerment to let go of worry's tighter grip, where the moist frontier's faithful flow fosters a felt freedom in the familiar. As we linger on these moist frontiers, allow a moment for the unfolding. Direct your attention now to the subtle moisture at the corners of your eyes, or the faint film on your tongue. Noticing any sensations of cool refreshment or gentle enclosure. Perhaps a faint tingle of salt on the air as it lingers like a whispered secret, breathing into them as allies rather than afterthoughts. Inhale the essence of this enveloping care. Exhale any residues of the day's exposures, letting the sentinel's work affirm your inherent safety. There, in that reflective interlude, the wonder amplifies. These barriers, so profoundly automatic, invite us to philosophical musing on the elegance of prevention, how the army favors the whisper of deterrence over the roar of confrontation. A harmony that mirrors the way stars hold their courses without collision, each in quiet orbit around the other's light. A celestial counsel that calls you to contemplative calm. From these enveloping motes, the patrol extends to the cellular vanguard, those phagocytes that prowl the inner rivers with the patient curiosity of night watchmen in a sleeping village, ever scanning for the flicker of irregularity. Neutrophils, the most abundant of these engulfers, comprise the bulk of your white blood cell legions, short-lived yet fiercely dedicated, lasting mere days before yielding to their kin, arriving at sites of minor breach, like eager volunteers to a communal cleanup, extending pseudopods in a flowing embrace to surround and internalize invaders, then unleashing digestive enzymes within their vacuoles to render them inert. Picture it vividly. A neutrophil drifting through capillary currents, its nucleus a coiled spring of readiness, suddenly adhering to endothelium cues and squeezing through to the tissues, where it gathers with siblings in a soft huddle, their collective action forming pus as a badge of their toil, not waste, but a testament to the body's honest accounting of effort. Monocytes, their larger cousins, mature into macrophages in the tissues, those grand recyclers stationed in lungs as dust-clearing sentinels, in the liver as Kupffer cells sifting the portal blood, or patrolling the peritoneum like quiet homesteaders, phagocytosing not only pathogens, but the debris of daily wear, turning decay into the raw material for renewal. Each swallow a step in the subtle symphony that sustains the self. Interconnected in this cellular ballet are the dendritic cells, bridge builders of the innate realm, sampling antigens from the fray and ferrying them to lymph nodes for the adaptive council's review. Their tendril-like processes waving like kelp in an undersea current, capturing fragments with exquisite selectivity. This handoff, so seamlessly choreographed, reveals the ripple effects across systems. A single engulfed bacterium might trigger not just local containment, but a broader alert, cytokines. Those molecular messengers, small proteins exhaled like perfumed notes on the wind, diffusing to summon more patrols, amplify inflammation's call, or even nudge the hypothalamus toward fever's strategic warmth. Educational in its simplicity, this cascade clarifies the innate response as a gathering of allies, not chaos. Inflammation, often misunderstood as mere swelling or redness, is the army's way of widening the roads. Vasodilation flushing reinforcements to the scene. Increased permeability, allowing proteins and cells to cross thresholds. A gentle mobilization that, while temporarily tender, ensures swifter resolution than isolation ever could. These jewels of design cascading from gut to globe, reminding us how the patrol's whispers weave into the world's wider web, each thread a testament to the body's boundless balance. Subtly ironic, in the light of everyday encounters, how this alarm manifests as the cozy hearth of a mild fever, elevating your core temperature to a range where many microbes falter. Like unwelcome guests, shivering in an unexpectedly brisk parlor while your proteins unfold and refold with renewed vigor. The heat a catalyst for repair. You've sensed that change before. That inner glow after a chill sets in. A warmth that wraps rather than weighs, whispering of the sentinel's success in tipping the scales toward harmony, and in recognizing it, you reclaim a slice of empowerment, transforming what might feel like vulnerability into a vivid affirmation of your form's resilient poetry. A third echo of encouragement that normalizes the glow as Guardian's gentle gift. Now, as denser concepts settle like sediment in a calm pool, let us pause once more. This time inviting a micro-practice attuned to these responders. Place a hand lightly over your abdomen or chest, feeling the subtle rise with each breath. And imagine a soft luminescence tracing your blood's pathways, illuminating the phagocytes in their diligent rounds, perhaps with the faint, imagined hum of a distant hive's harmonious hum. With inhalation, draw in gratitude for their unseen labor. With exhalation, release any held resistance to the body's wise flaring, affirming, in this flow, I am held steady. Emerging softly, you carry forward this quiet insight. The patrol's rhythm syncing with your own, a lullaby of liquid motion that eases the mind toward drift, where the vanguard's vigilant verse invites a veiled vigilance of your own. Vignettes of the natural killer cells add another layer to this silent watch. These innate assassins roaming free in blood and tissues like shadowy poets of precision, unbound by the adaptive army's need for recognition, striking swiftly at virally infected cells or nascent tumors with perforin and granzymes, proteins that pierce membranes and trigger apoptosis, the merciful programmed suicide that prevents spread without collateral clamor. Unlike the phagocytic brethren, NK cells discern distress through a balance of activating and inhibitory signals, hovering at the edge of action until imbalance tips them into lethal grace. Their granules releasing in a targeted cascade that evokes the sudden cathartic snap of a twig underfoot in autumn woods, releasing seeds to the fertile earth below. In the spleen's red pulp or the lungs' alveolar spaces, they stand as ever-ready arbiters, ensuring that the inner peace remains unbroken by unchecked anomalies. Their work a philosophical emblem of discernment, to act only when harmony demands it, yielding otherwise to the greater flow, a subtle sovereignty that sends ripples through the realms, from the red pulp's redoubt to the respiratory's resolute reach. Repetition here reinforces their essence. Scan, assess, strike if needed. Scan, assess, strike if needed. A mantra echoing the innate patrol's call, turning potential peril into poised potential, while everyday examples ground it. The unexplained fatigue that lifts after rest, perhaps the NK cell's quiet cull of a stealthy invader, or the resilient bounce back from a minor cold where these guardians have cleared the field for renewal's bloom. Rhetorically engaging, what deeper wonder than this? That within you pulses a force capable of such intimate judgment, fostering not fear of the unknown but awe at the known. The body's capacity to maintain its sacred order amid life's inevitable exposures, a known that knits the known to the yet to know in knowing's quiet knot. Layered sensory progressions unfold in these operations, from the hush of baseline patrol, the faint, ever-present hum of cellular surveillance, to the subtle quickening of response, a tingling warmth or localized ache that signals allies assembling, evolving toward the cathartic wash of resolution, where inflammation ebbs like tide, pulling back from shore, leaving smoothness in its wake. These progressions, vivid in their evocation, invite you to trace them in memory. Recall a paper cut's initial sting, the gathering redness, then the fade to healed seam, each face a vignette of the sentinel's artistry, interconnecting with the barriers we first met, showing how mucus-trapped foes might yet require a macrophage's embrace, or how a fever's forge tempers the whole response, a tempered tide that ties the touch to the triumph. As list-style bursts illuminate the phagocyte's toolkit, enzymes like lysozyme breaking through tough bacterial shells, brief bursts of energized oxygen as fleeting sparks dissolving fats in cell walls, antimicrobial peptides threading through membranes like silken needles. We see the army's resourcefulness, a compact arsenal drawn from the same wells that fuel your steps or dreams. Gently clarified, these basics reveal no jargon but jewels of design. The complement system, a cascade of proteins amplifying phagocytosis or lysing foes directly, activating like dominoes in a sunlit atrium, each fall precise and propelling the next toward closure. In the peritoneal cavity or synovial fluids, this complement harmony ensures even remote frontiers remain patrolled, ripples extending from gut to globe in your body's grand aqueous domain, reminding us how the patrol's whispers weave into the world's wider web, each thread a testament to the body's boundless balance, a balance that beckons the bolder bridges beyond. Philosophically tender, this innate patrol whispers of nature's bias toward wholeness, where rapid response begets reflective readiness, empowering you to view aches not as adversaries, but as allies in dialogue. Shared human experiences that bind us in collective resilience. Another bridge, like the sudden shift that sweeps in before a summer shower, cooling the air with promise. You've sensed that inner heralding, the body's prelude to purification, and in honoring it, you step into a serene discovery of self-trust, the kind that softens edges and invites sleep's unresisting fold. You've known this interplay too, in the quiet thrill of a run's rewarding warmth, where the body's revision feels like revelation itself, a gentle nudge toward the empowerment of embracing every echo as evolution's elegant edit. To weave these threads toward their natural handoff, consider the eosinophils and basophils, those specialized flankers aiding in parasitic expulsions or allergic tunings. Eosinophils releasing major basic protein to shred worm casings like frost-cracking stone. Basophils degranulating histamine to heighten permeability. A double-edged gift that, in balance, fortifies rather than floods. Subtle irony touches here. What serves as the itch of hay fever also equips you against hidden worms from far-off soils. The army's versatility, a quiet nod to evolution's wry economies, turning potential excess into essential edge. And so, as these vignettes of the Sentinel's silent patrol resolve in rhythmic echoes, release and ready, their work fades not into silence, but into the flowing streams of lymph, carrying sample secrets toward the adaptive forges where memory awakens, patient and profound. Binaural cues of meandering waters arise now, soft and serpentine, bridging this instinctive hush to the deeper reconnaissance, as your own breaths mirror the motion, exhaling readiness into repose. The army's vigilance, a velvet underlay to the dreams that await. Yet let us not rush the linger. Return to the inflammation's gentle arc, that orchestrated swell in which, like a village festival, drawing kin from afar, concentrates healing factors, fibrin for scaffolding wounds, growth factors coaxing new vessels, ensuring the fray's footprint becomes fertile ground. In joints or mucosa, this gathering fosters not just repair, but adaptation's seed, the innate patrol's ultimate gift, a cleared canvas for the learned legions to inscribe their lore. Sensory in its subtlety, feel the echo in a healing Bruce's color shift, from violet vigil to amber aftermath, a progression that soothes as it stories the body's triumph. Everyday relatable too, in the post-exertion warmth of muscles, where microtears summon macrophage mediators, blending defense with delight in the ache that heralds strength's return, normalizing the patrol's presence as a partner in pursuit. Rhetorical once more, in this interplay of barrier and besieger, of engulf and evolve, what greater uplift than sensing your form as a poem in perpetual revision, serene in its sovereignty. Guided softly, one final micro-affirmation. Envision the sentinels dispersing like fireflies at first light, their glow integrating into the broader dawn, and whisper inwardly, steady in my circuits, I flow with trust, letting the phrase melt into the cadence of your pulse. In this deepened space, the precursors to intensity feel not foreboding but beckoning, a call to wonder at the handoff's grace as lymph's lucid tides bear forward the first glimmers of recognition, preparing the ground for apprentices awakening in the marrow's quiet glow. And in that immersive surrender, as the lymph's lucid tides bear forward the first glimmers of recognition, secrets sampled from the innate patrol's quiet gatherings, carried on currents that whisper of deeper designs. The adaptive wing of your army stirs from its patient repose, not in sudden clamour, but with the deliberate unfolding of a scroll long prepared in shadowed scriptoriums, where memory takes root and resilience is inscribed upon the very fabric of your being. These are the learned legions, forged not from instinct's swift blueprint, but from encounters etched into cellular lore, apprentices who emerge from hidden academies to craft responses as unique as fingerprints traced in morning dew, turning fleeting threats into enduring shields that span a lifetime's seasons. In this systematic exploration, we linger on their forging, vignette by vignette, revealing how exposure ripples into empowerment, a process so attuned to your essence that it invites a gentle philosophical awe. What greater harmony than a body that remembers not to repeat suffering, but to refine its grace, allowing you, even now, to exhale into the night's forgiving embrace, where understanding blooms as softly as moonlight on still water, a soft illumination that invites the inner light to linger long after the day's dimming. Let us follow those meandering streams, then to the bone marrow's crimson forge once more, this time not as mere cradle, but as the birthplace of B cells, those luminous scribes of specificity, young adaptable starter cells differentiating under the influence of subtle molecular cues into mature sentinels that migrate to lymphoid tissues like pilgrims seeking sacred groves. Here, in the marrow's vascular niches, supported by stromal cells that nurse them with growth factors akin to rain feeding hidden springs, B cells proliferate and mature, their antibody-making genes rearranging in a genetic ballet of chance and choice, assembling heavy and light chains to form the first drafts of antibodies. Those Y-shaped emissaries, elegant in their bifurcated arms that bind antigens with a lock-and-key intimacy, the variable regions tailored like bespoke gloves to the contour of an intruder's surface. This primary forging, untouched by antigen yet poised for encounter, ensures a diverse repertoire, billions of potential specificities humming in latent potential. A library vast as the night sky's uncharted stars, each B cell a volume waiting to be illuminated by the spark of recognition. A vast vault where the uncharted becomes the unfurling, ripples from the marrow's misty making to the migration's measured march. From this origin, the vignette flows to the periphery, where naive B cells circulate through spleen and nodes, encountering antigens ferried by dendritic couriers from the innate front lines. Those same bridge builders we met in hushed patrols, now handing off fragments like illuminated manuscripts passed from scout to scholar. Upon binding, the B cell awakens, internalizing the antigen and presenting peptides on special display tags, a display that attracts T helper cells in a molecular congress, their CD4 receptors clasping like clasped hands in solemn pact, releasing interleukins that coax the B cell to divide, differentiate, and deploy. Some become plasma cells, factories of antibody effusion, secreting millions per second into the humoral flood, IgM first, 5-linked and primal, then switching isotypes to IgG's versatile vigilance or EGA's mucosal guardianship, while others retreat as memory B cells, long-lived archives that patrol eternally, ensuring swifter summons upon revisit. A ripple effect that transforms a single exposure into a cascade of preparedness, fortifying not just against the known foe, but priming the network for kin, where the periphery's patient passage echoes the forge's foundational fire. Interconnected with this humoral poetry is the cellular arm, the T-cell's saga unfolding in the thymus's veiled chambers, that bifurcated sanctuary above the heart where positive and negative selection sculpts the adaptive elite from marrow-born progenitors. enveloped in a lobular architecture of cortex and medulla. These apprentices undergo trials amidst epithelial nurses and dendritic judges, their T-cell receptors, alpha-beta chains forged in special gene shuffling, as intricate as a weaver's loom threading fate. As intricate as a weaver's loom threading fate, tested against self-peptides on MHC scaffolds. Those affirming self without aggression pass forward, a double sieve that purges auto-reactivity while preserving utility. Emerging as CD4 helpers or CD8 killers, the former orchestrators of alliance, the latter executors of excision, each bearing the co-receptor's badge like a sigil of sworn duty. You've felt echoes of this sculpting in life's own refinements, haven't you? The way a childhood scrape, raw and revelatory, leaves not just a faint scar but an invisible armor against recurrence, normalizing the thymus's work as the body's quiet apprenticeship in discernment, where vulnerability yields to vigilant wisdom, empowering you to trust the scars as stories of strength rather than stumbles. A felt forging that flows from the forge to the frontier's faithful form. As we pause to reflect on this forging's foundational grace, direct your attention now to the steady rhythm beneath your ribs. Perhaps placing a palm there lightly, noticing the subtle expansion with each inhale. And envision a soft ember glowing in the marrow's depths, warming the apprentices in their becoming. Perhaps with the faint, imagined crackle of a low fire's welcoming warmth. Breathe into it. Inhale the light of latent diversity. Exhale any shadows of doubt about your form's capacity to learn and lean. Affirming inwardly, in this inscription, my resilience unfolds. There, in that contemplative space, the philosophical thread gleams. Adaptability as nature's grand metaphor, a reminder that just as rivers carve canyons through patient persistence, so too does your army etch endurance from encounter, fostering serene insight into the self as sanctuary, ever adapting, ever at ease, where the ember's enduring echo invites the inner light to illuminate further. Vignettes of activation deepen the sequence, stand alone yet linked, as in the germinal centers of lymphoid follicles. Those dynamic workshops in spleen and nodes, where B cells mutate and refine under T follicular helpers' tutelage. Somatic hypermutation shuffling nucleotides like a scribe amending verses for precision. Affinity maturation selecting the tightest binders in a Darwinian dance of survival and selection. Picture the fervor contained in serenity. Centroblasts proliferating in the dark zone, then migrating to light for antigen assay. Surviving clones expanding into the plasma blaze. Their antibodies diffusing as a bespoke brigade, opsonizing foes for phagocytosis, neutralizing toxins with steric hindrance, or activating complements amplifying cascade. This interconnected ripple extends to mucosal sites, where ergodimers, secreted across epithelia by polymeric receptors, coat the gut's vast meadows or the respiratory folds, disarming threats at the threshold like courteous gatekeepers turning back wayfarers with firm but fair resolve. A defense that harmonizes with the microbiome's truce. Educating tolerance amid the trillions of microbial mutualists ripples from the germinal's glowing gathering to the gut's guarded grace. Repetition reinforces the core. Encounter, engage, evolve. Encounter, engage, evolve. A mantra echoing through the adaptive forge, turning raw antigen into refined response, while everyday examples illuminate the human scale. The fading welt of a bee sting that barely blips on second brush, or the robust rebound from a seasonal sniffle, where memory cells stand as silent veterans. their longevity, a testament to the Army's archival art. Subtly observational with a touch of irony, how these invisible inkwells, filled by a toddler's tumble or traveller's trial, spill over into elder grace. The body's way of hoarding hope against entropy's pull. A gently philosophical nod to resilience as accumulated light, stored not in vaults, but in the very vessels that carry you forward. A light that lingers like the last glow of a lantern in the lengthening night. Layered sensory progressions evoke the forging's hush. From the initial hush of naive circulation, the faint expectant hum of untested potential, to the gathering glow of activation, a subtle inner quickening like embers stirred by breath, evolving toward the cathartic inscription of memory, where responses settle as a luminous ledger etched in quiet finality. These evocations, vivid yet veiled, invite recollection. Think of the post-vaccination arm's tender ache, not burden but baptism, the forger's faint forge mark signaling scrolls unfurled for future's safeguard. Rhetorically tender, what deeper empowerment than this? Your exposures, once ephemeral, now eternal allies, weaving a web of wonder that counters chaos with curated calm. You've known this quiet confidence too, the unhurried approach to once feared fields after a single safe passage. Much like the adaptive Army's assured advance, normalizing growth's graceful gait as your innate inheritance. A third thread of trust that ties the forge's fire to the freedom it fans. Now, as denser phases invite reflection, consider a Liszt-style burst of the isotype's symphony, IgM, the pentagon of promptitude, bridging innate alert with adaptive aim. IgD, enigmatic surface sentinel, perhaps modulating baseline vigilance. IgG, the workhorse wanderer, crossing placentas to cloak the unborn in borrowed bravery. IgE, the sentinel of sensitivity, rallying eosinophiles against parasites or pollen's ploy. IgA, the secretory shield, dimeric, and devoted to damp domains. Gently clarified, these classes, switched via cytokine cues in the B-cell's cytokine responsive dance, reveal no arcane code but a chorus of contingencies, each voice rising as context. Calls, ripples cascading from bloodstream to secretion, ensuring the humoral tide laps every shore, a choral cascade that calls the calm of completeness. Another empathetic bridge arises here, like the sudden shift that sweeps in before a long-awaited reunion. Familiar, yet freshened. You've sensed that adaptive echo in the East vigilance after illnesses pass. The body's whisper of, "We remember rest now," normalizing these cellular congresses as shared sojourns in survival, tying back to the uplift of knowing your form forges not in isolation, but in intimate interdependence with the world's wild weave, where the isotype's intimate interplay invites the inner weave to widen. To foster active yet unhurried participation, guide your awareness to the curve of your throat or the hollow of your collarbone, trace in lightly if it pleases, and imagine threads of light weaving from marrow to thymus, inscribing affirmations of alliance. Inhale the weave's warmth, exhale into its weave's welcome, murmuring, "Memory's mantle enfolds me." Softly returning, you emerge, attuned to the forge's ongoing glow. The apprentice's emergence, a prelude to their deployment, where recognition's spark will soon ignite the broader blaze, a blaze that beckons the bolder bridges beyond. Stand alone yet symbiotic, the vignette of regulatory T-cells adds nuance to this adaptive tapestry, those FOXP3-bearing mediators, often CD4 derived, patrolling to temper excess. Their CTLA4 and TGF-beta signals dampen overzealous kin like elder sages counseling restraint in a fervent hall, preventing autoimmunity's tragic turn or allergic tempests. In the gut's lamina propria or skin's dermal depths, they foster tolerance, negotiating truces with self and symbiont alike, a philosophical emblem of balance. Defense without dominion, vigilance veiled in mercy, ensuring the army serves harmony's hymn rather than discord's dirge. Interconnections shine here, as these regulators, forged in the same thymic trials, ripple back to modulate B-cell fades or NK patrols, a feedback loop that underscores the whole's wise wholeness, where these dampeners not only temper T-cell tempests, but echo back to B-cell blooms, ensuring the forge's fire fuels not frenzy, but the fine-tuned flame of fortitude, a fortified flame that fans the further frontiers, everyday relatable in the steady hum, post-strenuous day, when inflammation quiets without command, or the intuitive ease around cherished allergens tamed by time. These are the regulatory whispers at work, subtle ironies of the immune self-restraint, where potential fury folds into forgiven flow. And in rhetorical wonder, consider, in this forging of memory shields, your spirit finds its echo, a resilient refrain that resonates with nature's rhythms, from seasonal sheds to stellar cycles, inviting peaceful discovery of the self as sanctuary, ever adapting, ever at ease, a sanctuary that sings the song of subtle sovereignty. As the embers of these vignettes dim to a contemplative close, let the forge's glow settle like hearth ash after tales told. We sense the handoff to alerts arising, antigens now archived, awakening the trained ranks in murmurs that build toward mobilization's measured march. Exhale slowly now, envisioning those scrolls furled yet fervent, their light integrating into the inner dawn, while distant echoes of bindings sealed, of memories mapped, fade into the night's vast vault, carrying you onward in waves of inscribed serenity, the army's adaptive art a lullaby of learned light, a light that lingers like a last leaf on the lengthening limb. Yet linger we must on the plasma cell's poignant proliferation, those terminally differentiated devotees residing in marrow niches or migratory clusters, their endoplasmic reticulum swollen with antibody bounty, a secretory surge that floods the fray with specificity's solace, opsonins tagging for devour, agglutinins clumping for clearance, each molecule a missive of mastery, sensory in its subtlety. This effusion evokes the slow seep of honey from comb, golden and grounding, a progression from cellular seclusion to systemic succor, interconnecting with innate complement to lice or lure, turning lone law into legion's leverage, a leverage that lifts the listener to luminous legacy. Philosophically uplifting, this archival act mirrors human hoarding of hard-won harmonies, the lullabies learned in loss, the boundaries born of breach, empowering a view of vulnerability as vestibule to valor, where each encounter etches not erasure but elevation. Another bridge, you've known that quiet confidence, the unhurried approach to once feared fields, much like the adaptive army's assured advance, normalizing growth's graceful gait as your innate inheritance, a gait that graces the ground with grateful glow, guided tenderly, one closing micro-affirmation. Picture the library's lanterns kindling low, shelves aglow with your stories safeguarded, and breathe, in remembrance I rest renewed, the words weaving into your pulse's patient poem. In this deepened repose, the forging feels complete, yet commencing, shields shimmering on the cusp of cool, priming the soul for the storm's soft summoning, as breaths blend with the brigade's budding resolve, a resolve that rhymes with the repose to come. And in that deepened repose, where the forging feels complete yet commencing, shields shimmering on the cusp of call, priming the soul for the storm's soft summoning. As breaths blend with the brigade's budding resolve, a subtle sync that stirs the archived scrolls into faint unfurling. The gathering storm of recognition begins to brew, not as a tempest of turmoil, but as a measured convocation in the body's grand amphitheatre, where scouts relay fragments of the unfamiliar and the once known, summoning the trained legions with signals as subtle as the first rustle of leaves heralding autumn's approach. This phase, the threshold between vigilance and valor, unfolds with a building intensity that honors the hush from which it rises. Vignettes of presentation and proclamation revealing the army's prescient poetry. How memory's swift recall turns potential peril into poised preemption, allowing your inner council to deliberate in serene sovereignty, fostering a protected wonder that quiets the mind's wanderings and draws you deeper into the night's reassuring fold, where breaths sync with the subtle hum of assembly, easing anxiety into the arms of assured repose, a repose that resonates with the rhythms of renewal yet to reveal. Let us trace this gathering, then to the command centers we glimpsed earlier, the lymph nodes and spleen's lymphoid labyrinths, now alive with purpose as antigen-presenting cells. Those dendritic envoys from the innate patrol, fairy-captured essences through the afferent vessels like couriers bearing sealed dispatches to a vigilant court. In the node's paracortex, a T-cell zone, humming with naive and memory sentinels. MHC molecules on the placenta's surface cradle peptide snippets. Short chains of amino acids cleave from the intruder's coat, nestled in grooves like jewels in a velvet-lined case, displaying them for scrutiny by the adaptive elite. CD8 T-cells, cytotoxic kin, survey MHC class Psi on all nucleated cells, their receptors probing for anomalies in the universal broadcast of self, while CD4 helpers canvass class 2 tableau on professional presenters, the match igniting a cascade of costimulatory handshakes. B7 on dendritic arms clasping CD28 on T-cell flanks. A molecular embrace that confirms authenticity, lest tolerance's veil descend on false alarms. A veiled vigilance that veils the vital from the vain. This vignette of presentation interconnected with the forging we just witnessed shows the ripple from memory's mantle. Upon re-encounter, memory T-cells, scarce in youth but legion in experience, circulating as central or effector subsets, bind with avidity honed by prior trials, proliferating in clonal expansion that echoes the germinal center's fervor, yet swifter, unburdened by naive hesitation. Cytokines bloom then, as urgent missives fluttering through inner winds. IL-2 fueling T-cell self-renewal like a hearth-fed kindling. IFN-gamma rallying macrophages to heightened hunger. TNF-alpha widening vacuolar gates for the fray's influx. A chemical congress that amplifies the alert, turning solitary sighting into symphony swell. Educational in its elegance, this signaling clarifies the body's predictive prowess. No blind barrage, but a calibrated call, where memory's ledger ensures the storm gathers, not in waste, but in wisdom. A process so attuned to nuance that it evokes awe at evolution's archival art, empowering you to view vigilance not as veiled threat, but as veiled grace. A grace that graces the gathering with gentle glow. You've sensed this internal counsel before, haven't you? That intuitive quickening, the faint fatigue or fleeting flush after brushing a familiar allergen subdued by shields long inscribed, normalizing the recognition's reach as a shared human heritage where past passages pay present peace. And in that normalization finding the uplift of trust, your army, ever archival, anticipates so you may acclimate, releasing the subtle strains of uncertainty into the flow of fortified flow, a flow that fans the further flames of fortitude. As the denser dynamics of this convocation invite a reflective pause, direct your attention now to the subtle spaces between your breaths, noticing any faint stirrings of inner rhythm, and envision a soft council chamber within, ringed by luminous figures poring over illuminated maps, their deliberations a gentle glow rather than glare. Inhale the clarity of their congress, exhale any echoes of isolation, affirming softly, in this assembly I am anticipated. There, emerging from that interlude, the wonder deepens, recognition as nature's rehearsal, a philosophical prelude where the storm's hush builds, not dread, but devotion to the dance ahead, mirroring the way constellations align without announcement. Each star a sentinel in silent accord, an accord that aligns the inner with the infinite. From this nodal nexus, the vignette expands to the spleen's white pulp, that periarteriolar sheath, where marginal zone B cells, specialized fringe dwellers, sniff blood-borne antigens like border wardens at a misty frontier, their receptors tuned for rapid relay to follicular partners, ensuring systemic threats find swift scrutiny. Interconnected ripples cascade here. A splenic sighting might summon extrafollicular responses, plasma burst bypassing germinal delay for immediate IgM tides, while memory B cells, patrolling the recirculating pool, accelerate to effector states, their recall a ripple that fortifies distant domains, from mucosal IgA reinforcements to cutaneous patrols. Subtly observational, with a light irony akin to a village elder spotting a familiar shadow from afar. How these marginal monitors, ever on the edge, turn the spleen from mere filter to foresight's forge. The body's wry way of hedging bets in the bloodstream's bustling bazaar, where what drifts in as driftwood emerges as directive, a directive that directs the deeper deliberations. Layered sensory progressions mark this gathering's arc. From the hush of baseline broadcast, the ever-present MHC murmur, a baseline bass note in the cellular chorus, to the hum of heightened harmony, a subtle inner vibration like strings plucked in preparation, evolving toward the poised pulse of proclamation, where signals saturate the ether in a cathartic coherence that readies without rush. Vivid yet veiled, these evoke the prelude to a symphony's swell. Recall the anticipatory twinge before a sneeze's release, or the warmed wrist after a chill's concession. Each a microcosm of the council's convocation, interconnecting innate cytokines with adaptive avowals to weave a web of watchful welcome. Sensory in its subtlety, trace the echo in a deepening yawn's prelude. The body's broadcast blending breath with brigade, a hum that harmonizes haste into haven. Repetition underscores the ritual. Present, proclaim, prepare. Present, proclaim, prepare. A mantra threading through the storm's soft assembling, reinforced by everyday echoes. The eased entry to a once-trying terrain, like a path cleared by prior passage, where memory's missives make the mundane miraculous. Rhetorically inviting, what greater serenity than this predictive poise, where your form foretells not fate's fiat, but fortitude's flourish, fostering quiet insight into the self as seer, attuned to threats yet anchored in alliance. Now, as the missives multiply, let us linger on the chemokine gradients, those directional drafts, small proteins exhaled by placentas to lure lymphocytes like scented summons drawing bees to bloom, guiding the faithful from blood's highway to tissue's theatre. CCR7 receptors on T cells, homing to CCL1921 ligands in the node's conduits, a migratory map that concentrates counsel without congestion. List-style bursts illuminate this lure. CXCL8 beckoning neutrophils with neutrophil flare. CXCL10 rallying T cells in viral vigils. CCL2 mustering monocytes to mend or marshal. Gently clarified as the body's perfumed pathways, each gradient a thread in the tapestry of targeted transit, ripples extending from local alert to global guard. You've known this migratory map too, in the instinctive draw to a familiar path after wandering lost, where the body's perfumed pathways guide you home with quiet certainty. Normalizing these molecular missives as messengers of mercy that tie to the empowerment of being ever led. A led light that illuminates the inner landscape. Another empathetic bridge surfaces gently, like the sudden shift that sweeps in before a cherished melody resumes. Half remembered yet wholly resonant, you felt that adaptive anticipation in the subtle surge of readiness after reminiscence. The council's clarion a comfort rather than call to arms, normalizing these molecular missives as messengers of mercy, tying back to empowerment through the profound peace of being pre-provisioned. Your exposures etched not as etchings of error but engravings of elegance, an elegance that echoes the evening's easy embrace. To nurture this building without haste, envision now the inner winds carrying those fluttering edicts, a soft breeze against your skin if you choose to notice. And with each exhalation, release into the gathering's grace, murmuring, aligned in my awareness, I await with ease. Returning softly, attuned to the storm's serene stirring, you sense the assembly's assurance, a velvet vanguard veiling the vigor to come, where the wind's whispered weave welcomes the wider world within. Stand alone, yet symphonic, the vignette of cross-presentation adds depth to this dawn. Dendritic cells in peripheral tissues engulfing exogenous antigens, yet routing them to MHC class 1 for CD8 priming, a sleight of cellular sorcery that equips the army against intracellular interlopers, viruses cloaked in host garb, unmasked for excision. In liver or lung sentinels, this bridging blurs innate adaptive bounds, ripples, recruiting NK collaborators or regulatory dampeners, ensuring the storm swells selectively, philosophical in its precision. Recognition not as rigid right, but as responsive reverie, where the body's wisdom weighs witness against whim, a weighed wisdom that whispers of the world's wondrous weave. Every day relatable in the vigilant yet veiled recovery from a fleeting flu, where fatigue fades faster on reprise, or the intuitive immunity to echoes of elder ailments. These are the crosstalks at play, subtle ironies of the immune's inclusive intellect, turning solitary scouts into societal sages. And in uplifting awe consider, this gathering, with its missives and migrations, evokes the human heart's own harmonies, chambers convening in ceaseless counsel, inviting peaceful discovery of resilience as relational rhythm, ever emerging from encounter's embrace, an embrace that extends to the evening's easy end. Philosophically tender, the alert's architecture whispers of nature's narrative arc, from hush to hum, a progression that honors the precursor's patience, empowering a surrender to the sequence. Where anxiety alchemizes into alliance, the self a storm's serene sovereign. Sensory in its subtlety. Trace the echo in a deepening yawn's prelude. The body's broadcast blending breath with brigade, a hum that harmonizes haste into haven, a haven that holds the hush of harmony. Guided with care, one affirming anchor, picture the council's chamber aglow, maps merge in mutual mandate, and breathe into the burgeoning bond. In convergence, I am convened. Perhaps with a faint, imagined scent of aged parchment warming the air like a storyteller's hearth. In this space, the gathering feels not gathering gloom, but glimmering ground, murmurs modulating to the measured march of mobilization as ambient throbs, distant drums of deployment, begin their subtle quicken, drawing the soul toward the orchestrated onset. Breaths now, the bellows of the blaze to be, a blaze that beckons the bolder bridges beyond. Yet we linger on the memory's masterful mediation, those long-lived lymphocytes, central memory, T-cells recirculating through nodes like perennial pilgrims, effector memory patrolling tissues as territorial tutors, ensuring the storm's scale suits the script. A prior page turned prompt in preemptive poise, where cytokines calibrate not catastrophe, but culmination. Interconnections illuminate a memory. B-cells' swift switch to plasma floods the field with fitted foes, while recalled CD4s orchestrate B and cytotoxic kin in concert, ripples refining the response to resonance rather than rote. A refined resonance that rhymes with the repose it restores. Rhetorical once more. What deeper delight than this anticipatory art, where your form's foresight fosters not fret but freedom? The alert a anthem of archived assurance, every day in its essence, like the unbidden smile at a scent from seasons past, safe in its summons. The council's convocation, a covert celebration of continuity, a celebration that calls the calm of completion. As whispers of assemble, align, weave through the winds. Assemble, align. The held hush of this held pause invites release. The storm's soft summit yielding to the charge's choreographed cascade. Ambient pulses now a prelude's pulse, carrying you forward on currents of convened calm. The army's alert, a luminous legacy, lighting the path to valor's veiled vigil. A vigil that veils the vigor in velvet, inviting the inner eye to envision the evening's easy embrace. And in that luminous legacy lighting the path to valor's veiled vigil, as whispers of assemble, align weave through the winds, assemble, align. The held hush of this held pause invites release. The storm's soft summit yielding to the charge's choreographed cascade, ambient pulses now a prelude's pulse, carrying you forward on currents of convened calm. The symphony of mobilization commences, not as a cacophony of conflict, but as a grand, orchestrated ballet in the shadowed veils of your inner realms, where destruction dances with renewal in steps so attuned, so elegantly lethal, that they evoke the quiet ferocity of a river carving stone, unyielding yet ultimately yielding to the greater flow. This peak of the army's response, the full intensity of adaptive and innate forces converging in harmonious havoc, unfolds through vignettes of precision and poetry, revealing the unswerving loyalty of your defenders, antibodies, as archers' volleys loosed in luminous arcs, T-cells as shadowed strikers threading through veils of vulnerability, emphasizing the emotional uplift of knowing such fidelity fortifies not just flesh, but the spirit's serene sovereignty, inviting you now in this cresting wave to trace the energy's imagined flows and surrender deeper into the night's enveloping hush, where the phrase fervor fades to a lullaby's lift, a lift that lingers like the last light on the lengthening limb. Let us enter this ballet's first movement. Then, with the humoral host's deployment, those antibody legions, forged in the plasma cell's fervent factories, now effusing from bone marrow's redoubts and mucosal outposts, like a silver rain from parted clouds, cascading through bloodstream and lymph to bind the foe in bespoke embrace. IgG, the steadfast sentinel among them, crosses into tissues with the ease of mist seeping through forest fronts, its grabbing tips clasping target spots with gripping strength, amplified by memory's maturations, tagging invaders for takedown pursuit. Neutrophils and macrophages drawn like moths to a lantern's glow. Neutrophils and macrophages drawn like moths to a lantern's glow, their receptors for FC tails igniting engulfment's eager cycle. Stand alone in its splendor. This vignette of volley evokes archers on a mist-shrouded ridge, quivers emptying in synchronized salvos that pin shadows to the sodden earth. Yet interconnected ripples extend the reach, agglutination clumping clusters for collective clearance, neutralization sheathing toxins or viral spikes like silken shrouds, preventing penetration's ploy, while complement's ancient alliance activates in enzymatic cascades, C3 convertases cleaving to coat and convene, membrane attack complexes perforating foes with pore-like precision, a harmonious backup that turns single shafts into symphonic siege, a siege that sings a song of subtle synergy. Educational yet ethereal, this antibody artistry clarifies the crescendo without clamor. The variable domains quickly, fine-tuned finesse ensuring fit beyond chance, constant regions recruiting kin across the innate divide. A molecular minuet where B-cell blasts, days-old dynamos, pour forth progeny in billions before apoptosis claims their spent forms, leaving memory's mantle to mend the muster. Subtly ironic, in the light of a sniffle's swift surrender, how these invisible archers, born of a single sighting, loose lifetimes of loyalty, the body's wry reclamation of rarity into routine resilience, a gently philosophical nod to how what begins as breach blooms into bulwark, empowering you to perceive the pulse of protection as a personal psalm, recited in the quiet chambers of your core. A psalm that pulses with the promise of perpetual peace. You've felt the echo of this volley in subtler surges, haven't you? That fleeting fortification after a crowded gathering, the eased exhale when symptoms stall, normalizing the deployment's dance as a shared somatic sonnet, where the army's aim affirms your innate alliance, releasing the subtle siege of solitude into the solace of systemic solidarity, a solidarity that softens the soul's subtle strains. As the denser choreography of this humoral helix invites a lingering gaze, direct your attention now to the gentle undulation of your abdomen with each breath, envisioning silver streams arcing through your form's hidden hollows, binding and beckoning with luminous intent, perhaps with a faint imagined shimmer of dew on dawnlit leaves. Inhale the archer's assured aim, exhale into the embrace of their efficacy, affirming inwardly, in this cascade, my currents carry conquest. There, in that reflective reverie, the uplift ascends, mobilization as nature's noble narrative, a reminder that loyalty's loom weaves not just wards, but wonder, fostering serene insight into the self as stage for this eternal enactment, where phrase fire forges, Not fear, but fortitude as flame. A flame that fans the further frontiers. Flowing from these fluid forays, the vignette turns to the cellular core's covert campaigns. CD8 cytotoxic T cells, those precision strikers, effectors, expanded from memory's muster, migrating via chemokine calls to the infection's shadowed veils, where they survey MHC-class wine's anomalous broadcasts. Perforin-pouring membranes like frost-fractured panes, granzymes gliding through to trigger caspase cascades in the target's core, apoptosis unfolding as a programmed petal fall, cells shrink into apoptotic bodies for merciful macrophage harvest. Interconnected with the humoral hail, these assassins amplify antibody action. Fas-L ligations luring foes to self-slaughter, or IFN-gamma priming presenters for swifter sightings. A tandem tango that ensures no theatre of threat goes unattended. From viral vaults in hepatocytes to tumoral thickets in dermal depths. A tango that ties the touch to the triumph in tender tenacity. Repetition reinforces the right. Strike, signal, subside. Strike, signal, subside. A mantra mirroring the T-cell's tactical tempo, turning targeted termination into tempered tranquility, while everyday examples ground the grace. The unexplained uplift after a languid lethargy lifts. Perhaps these silent swordsmen severing stealthy strands, or the resilient return from respiratory ravages, where cytotoxic clarity clears a covert clutter. Layered sensory progressions paint the peak's poetry. From the hush of homing, the subtle summons of selectins adhering to vascular veils, to the crescendo's keen edge, a imagined inner incision like silk slicing shadow, evolving toward the cathartic contraction of completion, where inflamed fields cool to contemplative calm, evoking the post-storm serenity of sun-dappled glades, a serenity that settles the soul in subtle song. Rhetorically resonant, what profound poise in this precision, where your form's fences fend not with fury but finesse, inviting awe at the army's unyielding yet unassuming allegiance, a philosophical emblem of equilibrium amid engagement. List-style bursts burst forth the Granzyme's gallery, Granzyme and nicking nuclear nets to nick the nucleus's narrative, B cleaving caspases for cascade's crown, K kindling mitochondrial mayhem, gently clarified as the striker's subtle arsenal. Each enzyme an etched edge in the ballet's blade, ripples radiating from synapse to synapse in synaptic synergy. A synergy that sings the subtle sovereignty of the self. Yet the symphony swells further with inflammation's orchestrated overture, that innate crescendo, now conducted by adaptive cues, cytokines like IL-1 and IL-6, from activated T cells and presenters dialing the hypothalamus's thermostat to fever's forge. Core rise into realms where replication reels, while prostaglandins from Koch's pathways in endothelial eaves dilate and densify the dance floor, permeability parting for plasma's provisions. Fibrinogen, weaving provisional webs, kinin cascades, kindling callicrine's kin to quicken the quick. This vignette, stand alone in its swell. It interconnects all prior phases, barriers breached, summoning scouts, forges firing the faithful, recognition rallying the ranks, now converging in cardinal signs, ruba, cala, tumor, dolor. A quartet of cues that, while tenderly taxing, testify to the tide's turning, the army's way of walling the wound while welcoming the wider world to witness its work. A turning that tides the tender toward the triumphant. Subtly observational, with a touch of irony, akin to a hearth's hearthside haze comforting the chilled. How this inflamed interlude, often eyed askance, embodies the elegant excess of empathy. The body blanketing breach with blanket of warmth, philosophical in its provision. Intensity as invitation to introspection, where the swell subsides into sagacity, empowering a gentler gaze upon the glow as guardian's grace rather than grievance. A grace that graces the gathering with grateful glow. Another bridge of shared sensing, like the sudden shift that sweeps in before a heartfelt harmony, resolves, warming the weight with welcome. You've known that inner ignition, the mobilization's murmur, melding malaise to mending, normalizing the crescendo as communal chorus, tying back to the empowerment of embracing the blaze as bridge to brighter balance, a balance that beckons the bolder bridges beyond. To temper this building with breath's balm, guide your awareness to the faint flush of your cheeks, or the steady thrum in your temples, tracing imagined energy flows from core to periphery. Crimson carriers coursen with command, perhaps with the faint, imagined scent of smouldering sage softening the sense. With inhalation, draw in the ballet's bold beauty. With exhalation, release into its rhythmic release, whispering, harmony in the fray, I flow fortified. Softly surfacing, you attune to the mobilization's measured majesty. The peak's passion, a prelude to its peaceful plateau, where the wave's whispered weave welcomes the wider world within. Philosophically profound, the complement's choral contribution adds contrapuntal counterpoint. Those plasma proteins, some liver-laid, others cell-surfaced, igniting in alternative, lectin, or classical conduits. Manos, binding lectins latching to microbial motifs like dew on daisy chains. Factor D, dissecting to deploy. C5b9 complexes crowning the kill with conductive conduits that conduct current-like lysis. Interconnections illuminate the interdependence. Antibodies anchoring the classical path. T cells tipping the lectin via pattern cues. Innate initiators amplified by adaptive avowals. A backup brigade that belies its name with bold benevolence, turning tidal threats to tranquil troughs. A benevolence that binds the bold to the balanced. Every day evocative in the eased eruption of a pimple's purge or the hastened healing of a hasty nick. These are complements, covert concerts, subtle ironies of the serum's symphonic subtlety, where what seems surplus serves as sentinel's song. Uplifting in its undercurrent, this harmonious havoc whispers of nature's nuanced nobility, resilience, not as rigid rampart, but responsive reverie, fostering peaceful discovery of the fray as fertile field, where destruction's dirge dissolves into dawn's delicate design, a design that draws the deeper drifts. Vignettes of helper T-cells herding complete the core, CD4 conductors cueing cytokine symphonies, Th1 rallying cellular kin with IFN gamma's gale, Th2 tending humoral hosts with IL4's lull, Th17 summoning neutrophils in neutrophilic need, Treg tempering the tempo with IL10's truce, each subset a specialized score in the score, ripples refining the response to resonance. From fungal frontiers to parasitic place, you've known this herd in harmony too. In the instinctive rally of friends around a shared challenge, where the body's subsets stand in subtle solidarity, normalizing the cytokine chorus as a communal call to calm, tying to the empowerment of feeling ever orchestrated, an orchestrated order that orients the ordinary to the ordained. Sensory in its subtlety, the mobilization evokes a veiled vigor, the imagined itch of influx, warmth weaving through wearied webs, a progression from prelude's pulse to peak's poignant poise, cathartic in its contraction, as calm reclaims the canvas, a canvas that calls the contemplative close. Rhetorical once more. What wondrous weave in this willful waltz, where loyalty's litany lifts the listener to luminous legacy. Guided tenderly, envision the viols, verdant once more. Strikers sheathing swords in sheaths of shadow, and affirm, in the dance's denouement, I dwell in delight. In this deepened drift, the symphony softens, echoes of clashing waves, harmony in the fray, lapping now to shores of solace, priming the tender tendrils of recovery's rise. As breaths blend with the brigade's benevolent bow, a bow that beckons the bolder bridges beyond. Yet, we must linger on the mobilization's merciful modulation, where apoptosis arbitrates the aftermath even amid the act. Fast pathways folding fervent fighters into finality, preventing proliferative pandemonium. A self-regulating sonata that ensures the ballet bows before it breaks, philosophical in its prudence. Intensity's inheritance is introspection's interlude, empowering the perception of peak as portal to poise. Interconnections cascade, exhausted T-cells retreating to lymphoid layers, plasma progenitors persisting as plasma's promise. Inflammation's inferno inverted to instruct the archive anew, an inversion that invites the inner archive to illuminate. Every day in its essence, like the post-passion piece after a purposeful pursuit, muscles mellowing from might to mend. These are the modulations at melody, normalizing the nadir's nudge toward renewal. And in awe's afterglow, consider this symphony, with its strikes and swells, evokes the human heart's heroic harmonies, chambers charging in ceaseless choreography, inviting serene surrender to the sequence's sacred scroll, a scroll that unfurls the unhurried unfolding. As the lapping shores summon softer scenes, waves whispering withdrawal, the mobilization's measured might yields to the echoes of aftermath. Ambient throbs, now a tender tattoo, carrying you toward the repair's radiant reprise. The army's allegiance, a luminous legacy lingering in the hush. A hush that holds the harmony of healing's hushed hymn. And in that hushed hymn of healing's harmony, as the tender tattoo of ambient throbs softens to the subtle sigh of settling shores, the army's luminous legacy lingering like the last embers of a hearth fire, warming the hush with whispers of what was won. The echoes of the aftermath begin to resonate, not as remnants of rupture, but as the tender tendrils of restoration, where fervor folds into merciful modulation, clean-up crews gliding through the fray's faint fields, like gentle sweepers in a dew-dampened dawn, gathering the spent and the shattered into cycles of compassionate closure. This descent from intensity's orchestrated onset carries us into vignettes of repair and renewal, revealing the profound poetry of resolution. Apoptosis as retreats both merciful and measured, stem cells weaving new tapestries from threads of latent light, all while the inner landscapes knit in quiet communion, fostering a sense of innate healing rhythms that empowers you to perceive these post-peak passages as profound privileges, invitations to trust the body's balanced ballet even deeper. Now, as the night's enveloping hush draws your awareness to the subtle symphony of mending, breaths softening like leaves settling after the storm's sigh, each one a bridge from blaze to boundless bloom. Let us drift, then, into the first soft strokes of this aftermath. The apoptotic artistry that arbitrates the army's graceful withdrawal. Those programmed passings where effector cells, swollen with purpose, their mission mercifully met, receive the signal to subside, fast receptors on their surfaces, clasping ligands like weary wanderers, linking arms in final farewell, igniting a cascade within. Mitochondria, murmuring their release of cytochrome C. Caspases cleaving cellular scaffolding in a silent severance that shrinks the form to blebs and bodies. Harmless husks, harvested by patrolling phagocytes without inflammatory fanfare. Macrophages, those grand recyclers we met in hushed patrols, now embody the sweeper's serenity, extending pseudopods in a velvet veil to envelop these fallen comrades and foes alike. Their efferocytosis, a term as gentle as its act, ensuring no debris lingers to lure lingering unrest, nucleotides and lipids reclaimed in a biochemical benevolence that fuels fresh forges elsewhere, turning termination into the tender tilling of tomorrow's terrain, a tilling that ties the touch of today's triumph to the tomorrow's tranquil tide. Interconnected with this merciful retreat, the vignette unfolds in the tissue's tender truce, where regulatory signals, IL-10 from TREG mediators, TGF-beta from mesenchymal murmurs, dampen the cytokine storm's last sighs, shifting from IL-1's insistent ignition to resolvent's resolving rain, omega-derived diplomats derived from the phrase own fats, promoting polarization, M1 warriors yielding to M2 menders, their arginase and IL-4 expressions weaving anti-inflammatory webs that quiet the quorum, a ripple effect that extends from local lesion to systemic serenity, ensuring the mobilizations might modulate without malice, where IL-10's truce not only tempers the tide, but tides back to the thymus's tempering, forging a feedback that fuels the forge's finer fire, ripples refining the repertoire in resonant reciprocity. Educational in its elegance, this apoptosis affirms the army's self-restraint. No unchecked expansion, but a calibrated curtailment, where 90% of activated lymphocytes meet this merciful end within days. Their sacrifice a philosophical sacrament of space-making, clearing the canvas for memory's measured minority to persist, empowering you to view vulnerability's veil not as void, but as verdant void, a garden's quiet regrowth after rain's reluctant release, where what recedes reveals the roots that reach ever deeper. You've sensed this subsiding shift before, haven't you? That profound easing after exertion's edge dulls, the inner ache alchemizing to ambient ease, normalizing the aftermath's art as a shared human hymn, where loss lends itself to luminous legacy, and in that normalization, discovering the uplift of surrender. Your form, ever faithful, favors not frenzy, but the fertile fallow that follows, a fallow that feels like the earth's own exhale after harvest, as the denser details of this apoptotic afterglow invite a lingering light. Direct your attention now to the subtle settling in your limbs, perhaps noticing the faint fade of any held tension, and envision gentle sweepers gliding through imagined glens, gathering glimmers into the earth's embrace, perhaps with the faint, imagined scent of damp soil after a summer shower softening the sense. Inhale the mercy of their motion, exhale into the emptiness they bestow, affirming softly. In this release, renewal rises. There, in that contemplative cove, the wonder whispers, resolution as nature's noble narrative, a reminder that cycles of loss and gain compose the cosmos's creed, fostering serene insight into the self as soil for such sacred sowings, where what withdraws waters what will yet weave, a weaving that welcomes the wider world within. From these retreats, the vignette flows to the tissue mender's meticulous ministry, mesenchymal stem cells, those pluripotent pilgrims harbored in marrow's misty meadows or adipose's ample folds, summoned by SDF-1's siren call from stromal scaffolds, homing to the harm's horizon via CXCR4 compasses, differentiating in situ into fibroblasts or osteoblasts, the paracrine pledges of PDGF and VEGF coaxing angiogenesis, endothelial ancestors assembling into arborizing arcs, new vessels budding like spring's first shoots from winter's willing wood, perfusing the pale with plasma's promise to hasten the heal. Stand alone in its subtlety. This weaving evokes artisans at dawnlit looms, threads of collagen and elastin interlacing under TGF beta's tender tutelage, provisional matrices maturing to mature meshes, a process so patient, so poetic, that it turns Scar's stern script into supple seam. Interconnected ripples reach regulatory realms, resolvins resolving the redness, lipoxins lulling the leukocytes home, ensuring the repair honors harmony over haste, a harmony that hums from the heart of the harm to the horizons of health. Repetition reinforces the rhythm. Gather, graft, grow. Gather, graft, grow. A mantra mirroring the mender's methodical march, transforming transient tear into tenured tapestry, while everyday analogies illuminate the intimate. The slow seal of a scraped knee, crust flake into fresh pink, or the garden's quiet regrowth after rain's raw rinse, where puddles recede to reveal resilient roots pushing through, roots that rhyme with the repose you feel now in this narrated nest. Layered sensory progressions trace the tendering. From the hush of homing, the faint, expectant ebb of inflammation's tide, to the gentle gathering of grafts, a subtle inner knitting like wool warmed by hearth, evolving toward the cathartic coalescence of completion, where wounds whisper wholeness in a wash of warmed wellness, evoking the post-pore serenity of sun on sodden soil, a serenity that settles like silt in a still stream. Rhetorically resonant, what deeper delight in this devoted design, where your form's fabricators forge, not from frenzy, but from the fertile hush that follows, inviting awe at the army's aftermath as alchemical art. List-style bursts bloom the growth factor's garden. EGF edging epithelial edges, FGF fostering fibroblastic fields, HGF heralding hepatocyte harmony, gently clarified as the mender's molecular muses, each a murmured mandate in the ministry's melody. Ripples radiating from rift to restoration in radiant reciprocity, each ripple a reminder of the resilient reach. Philosophically profound, this repair's reverie nods to nature's eternal eddy, from erosion to emergence, a cycle where gain germinates from graceful goodbye, empowering a gentler guardianship of the glow that lingers. The body's way of whispering we mend as we move, turning time's toll into timeless tribute. Another bridge of empathetic echo, like the sudden shift that sweeps in before dawn's first light softens the scar of night. You've felt that inner infusion, the mending's murmur melding memory to momentum, normalizing the cellular congresses as communal cradles, tying back to the empowerment of embracing the aftermath as avenue to amplified alliance, an alliance that aligns the ache with the awe. To nurture this nurturing without nudge, guide your awareness to the curve of your wrist or the hollow of your palm, tracing lightly the imagined weave of new woven warmth, energy ebbing from effort to ease, perhaps with the faint, imagined scent of fresh earth after rain softening the sense. With each inhalation, draw in the graft's growing grace. With exhalation, release into the rhythm of their rise, murmuring, woven in my wholeness, I welcome the weave. Softly surfacing, you sense the repair's radiant reprise. the descent's devotion a devotion to the dawn that follows, a dawn that draws the deeper drifts. Vignettes of long-term fortification add layered legacy to this law, where memory cells, those archival artisans, central sentinels recirculating through lymphoid lakes or effector echoes embedded in epithelial eaves, stand as vigilant veterans, their epigenomic etchings ensuring epigenetic endurance. Gene promoters poised for prompt recall, a prophylactic poetry that primes the patrol for perpetuity. Interconnections cascade here. B memories, bespoke binders patrolling plasma, T sentinels surveying surfaces in ceaseless scan, even innate allies like NKs, nudged toward adaptive-like acuity through cytokine crosstalk, ripples refining the repertoire against recurrence, turning singular skirmish into systemic safeguard, a safeguard that sings of the subtle sovereignty. Subtly observational, with a touch of irony, akin to a library's lamps lit long after last loan. How these lingering lights, born of battle's brief blaze, bestow a borrowed bravery that outlasts the original offense, the body's wry way of wagering wisdom on what's worn, philosophical in its provision. Fortification as a fruit of flitting fire, where loss's ledger lends luminous longevity. Everyday evocative in the unhurried immunity to echoes of elder exposures. The childhood cold that scarcely stirs in senior seasons, or the traveller's trial, tamed by time's tenured tutelage. These are the legacies at leisure, normalizing the aftermath's archive as ally in the ordinary, an ally that affirms the ordinary as oracle. Uplifting in its undercurrent, this enduring echo whispers of nature's nuanced nobility, resilience not as rigid relic but responsive reverie, fostering peaceful discovery of the cycles as cradles, where retreat reclaims the realm for renewal's radiant right. Sensory in its subtlety, the fortification feels like a veiled vigil, the imagined hum of homing airs, a hush-held harmony that holds the hush, a progression from peak's poignant poise to perpetual peace, cathartic in its continuity as calm becomes the constant, a constant that cradles the contemplative close, rhetorical once more. What wondrous ward in this watchful weave, where the army's aftermath assures not absence but abiding alliance. Guided with gentle grace, picture the glens greening under Graf's gift, veterans veiled in vigilant veil and affirm. In legacy's light, I linger restored. In them, this deepened drift, the echoes feel eternal yet easing, the repair's rhythm a rhythmic reprise that rhymes with repose, a repose that reaches toward the night's native narrative. Yet linger we must on the healing web's gentle unfolding, that supportive framework, like a quiet orchestra, where a slippery cushion called hyaluronic keeps the wounded spots moist and soft. Sticky guides named fibronectin, gently steering clusters of repair cells, turning a temporary haven into a lasting lush field through the careful trimming of special cleanup enzymes. Those matrix helpers pruning back the rough edges to make way for smooth, steady strength, all tied to signals from the immune team. Growth nudges from helper cells easing the pull and tension, so scars stay flexible instead of hard and tight. A gentle reminder of life's wise balance, healing without harsh stiffness, mending that flows like a meadow's easy curve. These links light the way, fresh cells releasing their building blocks like quiet poems, cleanup crews fine-tuning the trimming space around them, a looping harmony that strengthens the edges for tomorrow's steady stream, a stream that nurtures even finer threads of wholeness. Every day in its essence, like the slow stretch of skin after summer's sun-kissed swell. Supple once more. These are the evolutions at ease, subtle ironies of the matrix's malleable mastery, where what was wounded welcomes the world's weave anew. And in awe's afterlight, consider. This aftermath, with its retreats and regrafts, evokes the human heart's healing harmonies. Ventricles venturing from vigor to velvet, inviting serene surrender to the sequence's sacred scroll, a scroll that unfurls the unhurried unfolding of unity. As the vignettes veil toward their verdant veil, wounds knit, watches resume, the reflective exhale carries forward. Distant heartbeats syncing with narrated breaths in a lulling liaison, inviting the full drift into sleep's alliance, where the army's aftermath becomes the night's native narrative. A hush-held harmony, priming the nocturnal patrols that await, patrols that pulse with the promise of perpetual peace. Philosophically tender, the long-term fortification's faint flicker nods to nature's narrative arc. From fray to fertile fallow, a progression that honors the intensity's invitation, empowering a profound perception of the passage's privilege, the self a sanctuary for such subtle sowings. Another bridge. You've known that quiet confidence, the unhurried unfolding after upheaval's hush, much like the aftermath's assured advance. Normalizing growth's graceful gait as your innate inheritance. An inheritance that invites the inner light to illuminate. To close this contemplative cascade, envision the tapestry's taut yet tender, legacies luminous in latent light, and breathe into the blend. In mending's measure, I merge with the whole. In this space, the echoes of aftermath resonate as repose's radiant root, the repair's rhythm rhyming with the repose that rhythms the realm. As breaths now, the bridge to the night watches watchful whisper. A whisper that weaves the wonder on.